Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
They're polite. I mean, they just take the time for you.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible.
I like the Angels for what they've done for me.
Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.
Eagle Community Television presents Community Connection with your host, Mike Cooper.
Hello and welcome again to Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching, and thanks as always to the producer and behind the camera of our series, Jeff Durall. We're at the City Commission meeting room at City Hall with our Community Connection of Hayes City Manager Toby Dougherty. Well, Toby, as you're well aware, early on the morning of July 13, severe storms swept through the Ellis County area, and according to reports, rain and wind of about 70 to 80 miles an hour. Unfortunately, as far as we know, no injuries were reported, but trees and power lines and cars and homes did suffer some damage. And the City of Hayes responding following the storm, and we ask you to join us a little bit to give us some insight on the response of the city and what went on. And I guess first thing is, when were you aware of the destructive force of the storm and the need for a quick response from the city?
As far as aware of the destructive force of the storm, I was actually on my front porch watching the storm most of its duration. The storm woke me up, and you could tell the winds were a little bit unnatural to a regular thunderstorm. My front porch faces to the south, and so I was able to watch it, and it was very strong, sustained winds. It wasn't the burst of winds. There was gust in there, but for the most part, they were very sustained. However, just given the location of my house, there wasn't immediate damage there that I could notice. So I decided to go into work early, and as I left, one of my neighbors had a pretty large pear tree that was down, and so that's when you realize that there could be some more damage with this. And about that time, I got an email saying that the Emergency Operations Center had been activated. And the Emergency Operations Center is where the public safety chiefs get together and coordinate the oversight and response to any sort of an incident that requires an atypical response. Mm-hmm. So the Emergency Operations Center was activated. At that time, it was the fire chief, the police chief, and the assistant city manager was part of the OC. So I decided I was going to go to Fort Hays State, grab a Starbucks, and just assess the damage on my way into work. Mm-hmm. And it was quite impressive, the damage, especially down around the university. Mm-hmm. And so by the time I got into work and got a report, the EOC had been activated for probably a half hour. And at that time, the public safety people were dealing with, and there were public safety people out during the storm. Mm-hmm. And as the storm escalated, the public safety people quickly responded, your fire, your police. Mm-hmm. They knew there was going to need to be some sort of coordinated response. So the initial reports that I received were down power lines, traffic signals not working, down tree limbs, and street flooding. Street flooding wasn't necessarily due to the large amount of rain, but the fact that there was tree debris plugging the storm sewer inlets and therefore causing flooding, mm-hmm. So acting as little dams. The EOC then coordinated the initial response to the storm, and the initial response is get the streets drivable, eliminate all safety hazards if possible. And so we had fire department personnel and I think even some public works personnel monitoring areas where there were down power lines until Midwest Energy could show up to make sure that somebody didn't stumble into those power lines. We had crews from Parks, Water Resources, Public Works, even Police Department, Fire Department, clearing branches off of streets. We had some pretty large trees blocking streets, so we wanted to make sure the streets are drivable. We had police department personnel monitoring intersections where the traffic signals were out. We had traffic signals that had damage. We had some that were out because of the power outage. And so we have some kind of major intersections that needed traffic control during this process. And then after that, the Emergency Operations Center focuses on resource allocation. When the Emergency Operations Plan is put into effect, you have the Emergency Operations Center, and that's where I said the police chief, the fire chief, the city manager, assistant city manager. But then we have departmental operations centers. We have the fire departmental operations center, the police departmental operations center, the admin departmental operations center, and then the super public works departmental operations center. And then each one of those are working to coordinate their task, but then reporting to the EOC. So the departmental operations centers were activated. We had the Emergency Operations Center group was coordinating the overall response. We need to allocate so many resources for this, and at that time we probably had 95 to 100 personnel that had been activated for the response.
In a lot of different departments.
In a lot of different departments, right. We had, again, parks, public works, water resources, fire, police, administration.
It was literally all hands on deck, wasn't it?
It was. Everybody that was able to be recalled was recalled. And the lucky part for us is the storm happened not too long before troops could normally come into work. And so there wasn't there wasn't people had to come in too much early, but we still did recall a lot of people. So I'll give you an example, the administration DOC. And that is Kim Rupp and Aaron Niehaus, Aaron Giebler, our HR director, and Chad Reuter, the IT coordinator or IT director. This is the administration DOC. They are tasked with making sure the other DOCs have the resources they need. If they need something procured, if they need something they don't have, food is a big thing. We called a lot of people in before breakfast, before they get a chance to get up and eat breakfast. And so we need to find some way to get them some food so they can eat because they're going to be busy during the day. McDonald's stepped up and donated quite a bit of food, but we still had to go get it and distribute it. So it's things like that go on behind the scenes, putting out press releases, dealing with the phone calls we get from the public and the press about what's going on, what's the response. And so, this is all things that are going on behind the scenes. After the initial response phase, the DOC or the Emergency Operations Center was disbanded. It's no longer an emergency because there was, if any, it was relatively little injury to the storm. There was some damage to the property, but it wasn't an immediate threat to any continued safety. And so the Emergency Operations Center disbanded, no longer an emergency response. Now it's a coordinated response. So now the Public Works, Utilities, and Parks are coordinating the next phase of response. We knew we were going to pick up tree limbs. It's just a matter of when and how. How are we going to address it? And so they got together and put together a plan to collect tree limbs. We know we have people and contractors that are taking tree limbs off of properties already. Where are those tree limbs going to go? Where are we going to direct people? We normally send people to the Ellis County landfill. We have a contract with them where our residents can dump tree limbs for free. But this is a scale that is something of magnitude they don't deal with typically. And so they had to scramble a little bit to find a place to put the limbs, to make sure they were following all their KDHE permitting issues with the landfill. And kudos to Ellis County. I mean, they stepped up and were able to handle the onslaught and are still handling the onslaught. But it's stuff like that behind the scenes that people just don't pay attention to. So, and then we're dealing with the calls from the public, about what's going to happen, where do I take my limbs? And so that was the most of the day Wednesday was handled by a lot of administrative staff just fielding the calls. So then it moves into a cleanup phase. And we actually start picking up tree limbs. Our priorities are getting the streets immediately cleared. We got them cleared for traffic, but getting them immediately cleared, getting the parks and public areas that are of high use cleared of debris so that the public doesn't get hurt. Cleaning alleys so solid waste and recycle can continue. I mean, that's a big deal, is to get the alleys clean so we can get the trash picked up. So that's all part of that immediate response. And then we start into the collection, which is going on right now, where we're actually trying to pick up the limbs and haul them away. And throughout all of this, life still goes on for us. We still have to mow parks. We still have to do all of the things that a city does. We still have to read meters. We still have to work on streets. I mean, there's still tasks that have to be done. So the crews have been extremely busy for the last week and will continue to be busy probably for the next week. And then even afterwards, trying to catch up.
And these are city crews, but also you're able to find contractors who have the big chippers and such to be able to take care of some of the really extraordinary amount of debris that was created by this storm.
Yeah, you know, I need to make a distinction because we aren't going onto every property and picking up their limb. If you have a complete felled tree, we're not going to go onto your property and cut that up and haul it off. I mean, you need to hire a licensed professional to do that.
Yeah, that was one of the restrictions that you had to put out to let the public know what was going on.
Yeah, we want to provide a service, and kudos to our crews because it was never a matter of whether or not we were going to pick up limbs. It was when are we going to start. There's a lot of communities that won't provide that service. They may provide a location for people to drop limbs off, but you're on your own getting them there.
Yeah.
But we've always prided ourselves in Hayes and going above and beyond and making sure we have a tidy community, you know, service-oriented things like the compost pile, alley cleanup. You know, we want to make sure that we're going above and beyond, and this is just a good example of that. I think the last time we did this was 2006. We had an ice storm. 2006 or 2007, we had an ice storm and we did a coordinated citywide response to pick up limbs. So, you know, typically it's if you can drag it out or if it's in pieces where we can easily get a hold of it with the crews, we'll haul it off. But if it's a large hanging limb that's still attached to a tree, if it's a significant down tree, or if it's a limb somewhere on your property, a large limb, we aren't going to do that. You need to hire a professional. And there's a lot of tree professionals in town and around that are doing this. And there's also some people that they don't want to wait for city crews to come around. They want those limbs off of their property as quick as possible, and they're either going to haul it themselves or pay somebody to do it. And you know, if they have the wherewithal, then that's good.
And one of the things we noticed, Toby, was that through the help of the Ellis County landfill and such, that for folks who could haul the limbs themselves, there was a free, there was no fee charged, in other words, at the landfill.
Right, and yeah, so all residents that have limb damage can haul the limbs to the landfill, dispose of them free of cost, and Ellis County really helped out with that. You know, and it's not just as simple as pile the limbs up. They have a permitted landfill up there, and the permit spells out exactly how they can utilize that land, and they actually had to get a modification to one of their permits to do this. So, you know, the average resident out there might just think it's easy, but when you're dealing with bureaucratic regulations and Department of Health and Environment, it's never easy. There's always a step involved to make sure you're doing it right.
And on the other side, for the city, the compost pile was not a proper location for limbs because you don't want limbs in the compost for people that will be using that compost service.
Yeah, and we actually shut down the compost pile for a couple of days because most people that utilize the compost pile now know not to take limbs there. But we didn't want people that aren't familiar with the situation just taking limbs down there and dumping them off. So we shut the area off for a couple of days to get traffic funneled to the north, and I think it's worked out pretty well. I haven't been there this week yet, but I think it's worked out pretty well.
And also, I think one of the things that surprised a lot of us was just the enormity of the task involved. And the city staff, everybody really stepped up to try to help out, not only the citizens of Hayes, but neighbor to neighbor and city staff as well, Toby.
Yeah, you know, I had a neighbor of mine that was on his way over to pick up somebody else's limbs, and I was out in my yard, and I was fully prepared to take my limbs. But he was driving by with his trailer and you know, throw them on, I'll take them out to the landfill. And you saw a lot of that. I went for a walk last Thursday, and there was a large group of volunteers cleaning up limbs on TMP's property, and they were getting them loaded up and hauled off. And you know, I'm sure they didn't have to be begged to do that. They just did it.
We have situations like this that don't come up very often in the city, But that emergency operations center, where's it located, Toby?
Well, typically it is located at a county property. It was located in the basement of the law enforcement center. It will be located at the basement of the new Ellis County Rural Fire EMS facility, but they're still working on a couple communication issues there. But so this time it was opened up at Commission Chambers here, and typically it's rare that you're dealing with a pure localized emergency, but you can. But typically when the EOC is opened up, it's a county-wide issue. And so you'll have the other public safety chiefs in the county, the emergency manager, possibly the county administrator, the sheriff, the rural fire chief, you know, the EMS director. They would also be part of that as well.
Well, and I think kudos to the crew at Midwest Energy too, because again, with the tree damage, the down power lines, the traffic signals out and such, they've got a task at hand too. Yeah,
they have a huge task, but it always amazes me how quickly they can respond to a situation like that and get the power back on.
Well, it's pretty amazing that, speaking of response, that the city staff, the coordination that takes place, a lot of this pre-planning, you plan for the worst and hope for the best, I guess, is the kind of the situation you're driven by, right, Toby?
Gary Brown, our fire chief, is the one who designs and pushes us to do the response simulations. So we have the tabletop exercises, and I know a lot of people, you know, they kind of roll their eyes. It's time again to do the whatever response situation, but. You know, we need people like Gary pushing us, thinking about this, because you're right. The more you practice this, the more you prepare for it, the more seamless it's going to be. And honestly, I mean, with this situation, they didn't need me around. They didn't need Jacob, the assistant manager, around. It all happened. I mean, everybody just did it. Everybody did their job, and they did it professionally, and no questions were asked, and it ran seamlessly. Yeah, there's going to be little blips here and there, but for the most part, it was a seamless response. I was proud of everybody.
And thank you very much for the insights on what took place with the coordinated effort that made the cleanup effort, first of all the response effort and then the cleanup effort so successful. Once again, for the city of Hays, a great place.
Thank you.
Our city manager, Toby Dougherty, our community connection.
Angels Care Home Health, serving Hays and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
And the Angel Care nurse comes to see me once a week.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible.
Angel Care has helped to stay home.
Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.